First slide. Today, we are going to answer one question, which is how can you as an educator use the pathways in Bodyswaps to empower every learner? And what we mean by every learner is not only learners in all kinds of faculties and disciplines, but also every learner in terms of level and in terms of educational needs. To do this, we're splitting today's webinar into three. First, I'll start to give you an overview of the pathway, where they came from, and how they work. Oh, Gary, a little bit too early for questions. And then we will move into two case studies by two fantastic speakers, which I cannot wait to introduce. And we'll end with a little bit of a hands-on demo so that you are equipped to then later build your own. Little bit of housekeeping. We're recording the session. We will send a copy to everyone, so you don't need to burn your fingertips typing everything or take sneaky screen grabs. It's all going to be there in your inbox. Questions are welcome. We'll save some time for Q&A at the end. Use the chat to ask your question. We're recording them all as we go through, and we'll try to answer as many as possible. The one we didn't get to, we'll send the answers by email. And finally, as you've already started doing brilliantly, do introduce yourself in the call. It's 117 of us today, which is a lot. So great opportunity to build a community, because at the end of the day, it's learning from each other and not blindly believing everything the CEO of a software company says, like me. On that note, joining us today, I said it, two fantastic speakers, Marilyn from Parker University and Liz from South Yorkshire Primary Care Workforce and Training Hub. That's all I will say, because they do a great job of introducing themselves. So, pathways, where do they come from? How do they work? Why should you use them? Bodyswaps was created in 2020. We had a lot of feedback over the years. Specifically, in 2024, we proactively went to institutions we work with, and not what's going well for you, but what more do you want from the platform? The first thing that they said, if you're really familiar with the Bodyswaps module, is we love the modules, but some of them are very long. They can go from 15 minutes to 60 minutes. And in some of those modules, there are activities that we would like to extract to be able to use somewhere else. So they want bite-sized, they wanted bite-sized module, bite-sized units of learning. The second element was about building learning journeys that are tailored to their learners. Not just a collection of modules, but really being able to go a bit more granular and created pathways that were longer and tailored to who their learners were. Obviously, back in 2024, the LLM revolution started, and that opens opportunities to actually have back and forth conversation with an AI avatar to add a layer of practice on top of the learning elements. Then we had two slightly different requests on the other end of the kind of the jobs to be done for educators. So we talked about the lesson planning and the pedagogy side of things, but the other end is around the data and the assessment. And what educators told us is we want to be able to assess the knowledge, the acquisition of knowledge of our learners, and also to prompt them to reflect in new ways on themselves and their performance. And also, finally, we want learning analytics at the level of the individual and also at the level of the class. And lastly, but certainly not least, the pathways, the idea was to build a solution that's not only for fantastic champions like Marilyn and Liz, but really for everyday educators who are not necessarily as tech savvy, don't have that much time, and are really looking for a solution that's easy to use and reliable. So that's the feedback we got. So what did we do with it? Taking a step back, there are two ways to look at Bodyswaps. There's a value proposition for learners and one for educators. For learners, if you need to discuss with colleagues or senior leadership, what does Bodyswaps do? The easiest analogy is it's a flight simulator for soft skills. It allows your students to immerse themselves in simulated dangerous soft skills situations, to have interactions without any judgment, and to take perspective on the performance. What's really new with the pathways is the educator value proposition is changing from, here you go, we have a Netflix-like collection of simulations, to more something that's closer to Roblox, right? Where you have the power now to build your own pedagogy, your own programs and pathways by picking and choosing throughout, from different kinds of units. So I'm now going to play a 1-minute video, which is going to explain that in much more eloquently than I can, and with less of a French accent. So here we go. And if one of you can give me a thumbs up just to say that you can hear a sound, that would be great.
Build soft skills pathways in minutes, from interviews to patient communication to conflict resolution to public speaking. Pick learning modules, customize AI role plays, mix in quizzes and questionnaires, and create learning experiences tailored to your goals, your context, your learners. Deploy instantly across VR, mobile, and PC, so learners can practice anytime, anywhere. Our AI feedback gives learners personalized, actionable insights after every session, turning learning into something real, repeatable, and impactful. So you can sit back, watch confidence grow, and prove impact in real time.
Okay, that was short. Now let's dig a little bit deeper. So there's two main elements to the pathways. One is the guided learning, or three main elements: guided learning, practice, and assessment. On the guided learning side, if you've been with Bodyswaps for a few years, you are aware of the 35 learning modules that we have. Those are scaffolded modules, really breaking the skills one by one by increasing order of difficulty, 50 to 60 minutes each. What we did to answer that first request, I want more bite-sized content, is to break those learning modules into smaller activities. So for example, in Navigating Angry Conversations, which is a healthcare module, there's one activity on box breathing. It's a very good strategy, box breathing, for public speaking, for job interview. So you might want to take that activity and put it somewhere else. Conversely, in public speaking, you have exercises on placing your voice, the volume, the pace, the intonation. This can be useful for job interview preparation. So that's why we created the bite-sized activity, to really allow you more flexibility. This is the list of the modules. I'm not going to go in details. So that's the top level, right? The modules. And you can imagine within those, you have bite-sized activity as well. Again, for those who just joined, this is recorded, so you will have access to that slide, and all of that information is on the website. Now, how does a module work? Well, every module is different, but to give you an idea of what I mean by scaffolded learning, this is typically how some of the simpler modules are built. You would start with something like an observation exercise. So as the name indicates, you're observing a couple of characters, sometimes more, having a conversations, and it's a sort of a mini game where you need to click every time you see or hear either a bad behavior or a good behavior. You typically have 10 lives, 10 clicks to find out 8 behaviors. So it's interactive, it's emotionally involving, but it's still very safe. Then we're going to up the stakes a little bit, and you would typically go into a branching conversation or guided conversation. So in this case, you have a couple being very angry about cancer diagnosis that came in very late, and you have to use what you learned in the observation and pick the right answer, choosing between A, B, or C. You can use your voice to do that, or your fingers, and you will get feedback based on the decision you make. But then obviously in the real world, you don't get to click, you don't get to choose A, B, or C. You have to improvise, to think on your feet. And so that's why in every module, we put the learner in an unscripted intervention, during which they're going to use their own words, their own body language, and talk to an audience. The audience might be a patient, a recruiter, someone in the classroom, and so on. And as the name indicates, we are then going to allow the learners to body swap, so to watch themselves back from the perspective of said audience or recruiter or patient and so on. If they are in virtual reality, they will see their avatar have their body language, but in any case, the avatar will have their voice. And then you will get feedback, body language, transcripts, and so on. So that's typically how a learning module works. Now we have the AI role plays that you can go and customize. The choice that we made very deliberately is to not give you essentially a ChatGPT wrapper that just, transforms your prompt into avatars and environments, because every soft skills conversation represents different learning needs, different pedagogical approach, and really the customizable AI role plays are a collaboration between our learning design team and yourselves. So what I mean by this is the learning design team, and Liz is going to come on stage in a second, builds a master prompt. So a master prompt for each role play is a prompt of several hundred lines, there's several dozens versions of each prompt until we reach what we want. And what we want is a practice that feels realistic in terms of the emotions of the avatar, the pace of the conversation, that is safe in terms of protecting the learner, but also ensure that some of those who try to break it don't succeed. And lastly, that is pedagogically sound, which is if you're practicing active listening, the AI is going to test you on active listening skills and is going to assess you on those skills, right? So that's the master prompt. And then you come in as the educator to fill in the blanks. Who are we talking to? What are we talking about? What's the emotion of the AI? What's the character, the environment, and so on. So to give you a short example, I've created a very important role play yesterday. And the question is, which country has the best cheese, France or the UK? I know the answer is obvious, but I created a debate nonetheless.
There's just more diversity, right? From a raclette to a népoise to a concoyote to a camembert to a comté. There's just more diversity than your blue cheese and your cheddar, and it kind of stops that. Now, if we compare the star cheese of the UK, which is cheddar, versus France, well, again, there's no competition, right? It's just from a flavor profile perspective, there's no comparison, right? Most cheddar that you will buy in supermarkets just tastes like socks.
Whoa, hold on a minute. You're throwing a lot of cheese at me at once. Diversity, I'll give you that France has a wide range, but Britain's got some hidden gems that you're overlooking. Ever had a proper Wensleydale with cranberries? Or a creamy Lancashire? And as for cheddar tasting like socks, I'll admit supermarket cheddar can be a bit rough, but a real West Country farmhouse cheddar? That's a flavor explosion that can stand up to any fancy French cheese.
Now we're going to the role play, the Bodyswaps, sorry.
Let's get this cheese party started. All right, say, that's...
But a specific cheese, or are we talking about cheeses of that country in general? If we take the country...
So you can watch your performance back from the perspective of Jake in that case.
Climate.
And then finally, you get access to the feedback. One mistake I made when I created that simulation is that, as you might have heard, Jake has an American accent, which is weird, but he knows his British cheese very well. And I'm sorry I did not debate with American cheeses, because I don't even think that's a thing. Anyway, that is how AI role plays work. So very easy to create them. In that case, I made Jake very friendly. I made the debate easy. All of this you can change. After that, the learner will receive a learner report, and you as the educator might also receive that report if you have decided that the learner has to send it to you. In that report, you will have the settings that were applied to the role play, all the performance analytics that we've just seen, as well as a transcript. Finally, in your pathways, you can add more elements. So you have the modules, you have the exercises, you have the role plays. You can add quizzes, MCQ, very easy. So you check the knowledge, and you can add questionnaires. So that can be Likert survey, that can be open-ended questions, typically used for learners to reflect. So all of this together is what makes a pathway. So a pathway builder, which I'll show you in a few minutes, is just you picking the elements you want and bringing them together, or taking a pathway that has been made available in a public way and make it your own. So a couple of very quick examples. This is a pathway created for engineering students. There was actually 4 pathways, so 4 different weeks for engineering students about the foundations of professional communication. What's interesting in these pathways is AR role plays represent about 35% of the total learning time. Another example, this one in healthcare, much shorter, 60 minutes, but AI role plays are 100% of the pathway. And the pathway is simply 4 different examples of patients with different characters and backstory. And right now, I'd like to invite Liz on to talk to us about the public pathway. Liz, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. And just to really quickly introduce who I am, I'm the Senior Immersive Learning Designer here at Bodyswaps. So I've had a hand in probably anything you've seen, all the role plays, everything that has come out from us has probably had my hand in it at some point. I'll try not to labour too much that Chris has already covered, but just to give a sort of brief overview of the pathways that are essentially off the shelf. Now, the pathway builder obviously is supposed to be a sandbox for all of you. It's for you to tailor it to your specific learning objectives and your needs and your learners. But we do have some off the shelf that are kind of built around key sets of skills, things that we know are common or have been asked about in whether it's in the healthcare industry or in general employment skills. Currently, we have 12 that are available off the shelf, and I put 12 in an asterisk because some of those are designed to be taken in in a group, so they're sort of chapters of a larger series. For example, Get Interview Ready, that's a 4-part series of skills that will build up towards being interview ready. And really, when we design these, it's a structured sequence of content, so it's a lengthier set of. You could think of it as a longer course, essentially, designed to help educators deliver like an extended learning journey that's going to help your learners achieve multiple learning objectives as opposed to an individual course, which might just be 1 or a handful of learning objectives. So it's really for sort of a longer experience, not just one sitting. And these specifically were designed on some learning objectives that we identified for key skills like emotional intelligence or interview preparedness, or like personal wellness and healthcare. Those are just some of the examples you can see there. And what we've done, and you can do this when you build pathways as well, we've added like knowledge checks or self-reflective questionnaires throughout, which wouldn't be present in modules normally. You can add them throughout the pathway, which will just aid that consolidation and that self-efficacy, depending on what you want your learners to be tested on. We've put some based on kind of what's there in those little bite-sized activities and what we think would be great to test generally, but you really have flexibility and freedom there. And Chris did touch on this a bit earlier. We have activities that are typically scaffolded. So throughout a module, it'll sort of start from the learner's hand being held. They'll have the training wheels on, and then slowly as it goes on, we'll take those training wheels off, and then they have to practice on their own. And likewise in these pathways, we've kind of designed it to be that way too, where it's scaffolded. It starts a bit more straightforward. Their hand is being held throughout, and then eventually when they get to the end, they are able to practice on their own, whether that's in a role play or one of the practice activities from one of the modules that have been segmented. Generally with these off-the-shelf pathways, they're usually around about 2 hours, so that it could be finished in like sets of like 30-minute sessions, but it really varies, and you can tailor pathways to your needs in terms of time as well. So there's that flexibility there, but generally when we've built ours off the shelf, we aim for that. And most of these pathways, I think all of them, they all contain role plays that are pre-populated. So we've pre-customized scenarios, but you can customize your own role plays, as Chris touched on. That's totally your game. You can change the scenario to what you want it to be. And even with these, if you were interested in these public ones that are off the shelf, you can clone them and you can customize the placement of activities. You can change the scenario of the role play, change the quizzes and questionnaires. So there's all that flexibility there too. That's a really quick whistle-stop tour of the ones we have off the shelf and Pathways in general, just building on what Chris added. But yeah, I will be available in the Q&A at the end if people do have any more specific questions. I'll be happy to answer.
Brilliant, thanks a lot, Liz. And you know, if you're wondering who's the human behind the AI, and you need to picture someone, that's Liz and her team. Last little thing before we give the floor to Marilee. So some numbers. There's been over 2,000 pathways created by educators on the platform already. Wide variety. The longest one is 450 minutes, which is a 12-week intervention. So I think it's 28 units positioned over 12 weeks. So you can go deep and long. The most used pathway has over 5,000 sessions, and it's one of the ones that I showed earlier for engineering students. And finally, pathways have been deployed in over 20 countries. So there's a lot that you can do, a lot that you can create. But I will shut up now and let the educators take the stage to present what they have done. So Marilee, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to bring up my slides here real quickly. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you again so much for allowing me the opportunity to share. My name is Marilee Carter. I'm with Parker University in Dallas, Texas. And we've had a long relationship with Bodyswaps. I'm going to go over that for just a minute, but I'm the Assistant Director of Learning Innovation, and it's just a fancy way of saying I get to explore and work with faculty to incorporate immersive technology into their classrooms. And we work with several different applications, but one of the ones that we have had the most success with and is actually the easiest for us to present has been Bodyswaps. So let's go ahead and get into that. A little bit about our university. We are a private nonprofit health sciences university in Dallas, Texas. Our largest program of 28 is our Doctor of Chiropractic. We're one of the 18 North American chiropractic programs in the US. We started working with Bodyswaps in 2022. I became aware of Bodyswaps through a colleague of mine in Canada, and was very intrigued because I really wanted an opportunity to use some soft skills. I love the example, Chris, that you said of the flight simulator of soft skills. And so we started with a single device. I was able to get approval to purchase a single device license, and started showing that to various people in the programs. And then in 2023, we were a grant recipient, and that allowed us the opportunity to really show it off in a number of ways, including at our career fairs and just some of our conversational opportunities. That led to a 2-year institutional license, and we've just renewed, this past year, renewed our second 2-year institutional license. And the beauty of that means that I can roll it out anywhere to anyone without worry about how many headsets, how many students, I can use all the things. And so I love the ability to do that. So I want to talk about 3 of the use cases that we've been doing consistently across our campus. At the sonography, we have a diagnostic and cardiac sonography program, and we've used the job interview practice before they do a faculty mock interview. And what I really love about the AI role play is that I was able to customize this for this last cohort. In fact, we just did their simulation about 3 weeks ago. And we uploaded a job description to customize it so that we could get specific questions about an entry-level sonography student who was graduating. Our second one is our Doctor of Chiropractic, and that's a mental health crisis. We've been doing this now for a year across 3 cohorts, and we do it as part of the communications course, and we offer them the opportunity to be with a patient who's expressing thoughts of self-harm. It gives them a safe place to practice that. And then finally is our geriatrics pathway, which again is also part of our Doctor of Chiropractic. These are students who are about ready to go into clinic. And so they do they do a dementia, which is a pretty standard off the shelf. And then they have a hearing impairment with a patient who is hard of hearing, who asks them to repeat themselves. And I've added reflections and quiz questions in that as an assessment. So again, for our sonography students, it allows it to be customized so we can do a clinic or a hospital setting regardless of what type of environment they might be working in. And because we do a lot of research at Parker University, I collect surveys, optional surveys. And so I'm trying to speed them through some of this process, and I use the questionnaire to just let them know that a survey will be offered to them afterwards. It is completely voluntary, even though the exercise itself is not voluntary, and it's just a good way of getting into that informed consent for those students. With our preclinical DC students in the communication, one of the things that we're finding for a lot of you, a chiropractor may be an entry level into the healthcare system. And so regardless of the type of care that a patient may present with, they bring their whole selves into the clinic. And so our students who are seeing patients for the first time will, do a complete systems, questionnaire and health history. And we're seeing more and more patients who are coming in with just incredible stories of things that they're going through in life. And it can lead to a lot of mental health issues and mental health crises. And so it gives our students an opportunity to practice these skills and just hear those words from a complete stranger, and gives them a chance to experience what that's like in a safe way that can be repeated, that will cause absolutely no harm to a patient. We have an expanded pre-brief. We talk about different resources that are available to the students and anyone in their lives that might be experiencing mental health crisis. And again, that questionnaire is just another way before the exercise to remind them that they have these resources, that they can discontinue the simulation if it is too much for them to go through. It just gives them another way to just to reiterate those things. For our geriatrics course and our geriatric students, again, these are preclinical students, and we focused on the dementia patient because it was something that, again, more and more of our students are actually seeing patients coming in for one reason or another who have dementia, and just a way of having empathetic conversation with them. We've added, again, those reminders that there will be a survey offered, and then a reflection question that they can use their own words to answer, or they can type them out. And then my professor was so excited about the success of this the last term, she asked me to create an AI role play for a hard of hearing patient. And so we just deployed that with our students about, again, this term, about a month ago. And it was really fun to sit and listen to the students as they're talking to the patient and saying things like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Jones." They'd referred to him by his first name. And so that was a customization that I could add in. It includes a questionnaire, a survey disclaimer, and then some knowledge checks at the end. So I'm just going to quickly go through these scenes to show you what it looks like for me. When I create a pathway, I start with the pathway and I decide how I want to structure it. I have a disclaimer, and then I'll customize the role play. And there's the AI tool now that is available to help you create it. Makes it so much simpler to do because I know exactly the types of things that I want to include. And then at the end, I will create a quiz. It might be a 3-question, a couple of yes or no's, multiple choice. It can be a Likert scale. It can be free text. Then I'll create the class. And what I like to do is I pre-enroll my students. I used to have them self-enroll, but I pre-enroll them, making sure that I've checked that they have that option. And I use the QR code for all of the students to scan the QR code, but I can also give them the class code. So some of the outcomes and the impact After a year of scaling this, we started with about 75 students that went through. My largest cohort in the fall, I had over 200 students, and I was literally going back to back to back, 15 to 20 students at a time. But overall, it was very positive. They reported that they felt more confident in having these conversations and being ready to go into the clinic. Our faculty in the clinic said they felt like they were more prepared and they just felt more comfortable in those patient settings. We were able to use the learning pathways to support the consent, the reflection, to give them optional surveys and quizzes. And it was just an improved way of giving equity to our students, so they were all able to enroll in that and experience that, whether they had access to hardware at home. It just gave everyone the opportunity to do that. Some of the lessons that we've learned and what we're hoping to do next. First of all, psychological safety is the most important thing. I have a simulation background in traditional medical simulation. And so psychological safety is so important that these students are able to come in and to be able to experience this. We have structured pre-briefings, especially for these intense scenarios. And, you know, the technology is great, but the debriefing is really where everything happens, that reflection time. And whether that occurs as part of the pathway or it occurs with the faculty back in their classroom later, it's still really significantly important to have the debriefing. And yes, bulk enrollment, that has been a lifesaver for me. So what I do is I do a bulk enrollment and I download the list and email addresses of my learners in that class from my LMS. I export that into a CSV file, and then I import that using the bulk enrollment tool in Bodyswaps Go. And it has saved an enormous amount of time, because then again, they're not focused on how do I scan the QR code? How do I get my name, type my name and my email address? All they have to do is find their name and then they're enrolled. And it's less about the hardware and less about the software and more about the experience. One of the most exciting things that we are looking forward to is with our clinic docs, I'm working on a virtual OSCE pathway, and I'm using the AI role play so that we can create specific structured points that they want their students to be able to meet so that they can practice for their in-person OSCEs that are necessary for graduation and for their board exams. So this has just been a really exciting. The Pathways has been a phenomenal upgrade, and the AI role play and the ability to create those and customize them. I can't tell you how excited we all are about that. So if you'd like to connect, I'm on LinkedIn. You can scan this QR code here. My email address is underneath, and I love to share. So many people have shared with me over the years, and I am happy to provide that information.
Thanks a lot, Marilee. It was truly great. Do connect with Marilee on LinkedIn. She's a big voice over there as well. So thanks a lot again for your presentation. And now, as a duo, we're going to have Liz speaking and Georgia managing the presentation, if I'm correct.
Okay. Thanks. Hi, everyone. So I'm Liz Leggett. I'm a project manager and lead for digital innovation at probably the longest title. It's the South Yorkshire Primary Care Workforce and Training Hub. I have noticed a few kind of people popping up from Wakefield and North Yorkshire, so neighbours practically, hi, and then a few from far afield, so nice to speak to you all. This is my background, basically, non-tech. I am a non-tech expert, and I wanted to kind of make a reference to that, the fact that I am kind of patient-facing, or have been a patient-facing service manager. I manage people, I manage projects, and I manage things. Then we had a slight focus on a small pandemic, and then decided I wanted a bit of change of career, really. So this opportunity popped up, and then that led to Georgia. Next slide, please. Thank you. And I don't think if you don't blow your own trumpet, then nobody else will. So I kind of won the HSJ Digital Innovator of the Year award last year, and I'm still within the 12 months. So I'm happy to keep barking on about that. Thank you, and thanks for all the glitter. I love that. Next slide, please. So a bit more seriousness now. So when I joined the hub, this was the aim of the project, really. There were 3 different aims. One was to have a look at what a technology-focused training and simulation centre might look like, because believe it or not, we still don't have a building that we really kind of train from. We went into GP practices, we hired hotel rooms and conference suites, and it wasn't great. So gathered together loads of stakeholders. We knew what we wanted to do, what it wanted to look like, and that business case is still sat on a shelf waiting for some cash. So in the meantime, the second arm of that was about testing different technology enhanced learning tools, and those learning tools had to do a certain thing. They had to expand access to good quality training. They had to expand capacity to that training as well, and actually bring a different quality to what we were already delivering. So a lot of face-to-face, as well as online, obviously through COVID, and a bit of simulation, but not massively, not how we kind of understand simulation now. But so we wanted to bring some of that simulation in and bit of the role play experience. And then once we'd found those tools, to actually adopt them, to learn how to use them, to roll them out, and to find the best way of actually doing that. So as you can see here on this slide, there's quite a few different sort of cohorts that we tested that with, even down to T-level students, GP school volunteers, reception and admin, you know, and kind of A-level students as well. We wanted to see what they thought about this version of training. So this since then has actually led on to kind of us being able to identify gaps in training, to be able to find the best fit tool. So if like we're looking at soft skills training here, you know, Bodyswaps did quite a lot for us, so we adopted that one pretty quickly, and we could kind of use that to bridge gaps in our training that we knew we recognised. It enables us to kind of speak to our program leads and our educators, and actually something that would kind of support their training they already delivered. And it's also led on to things like this. I like to, as Mary Lee said, we share what we've learned, we share our knowledge, we share even case studies and what went wrong and what went well. I think basically so other people don't make the same mistakes. Thanks, Georgia. So operationally then, we do this in various different ways. We have some of the larger groups, so we have some GP trainees that have got their medical degree and are obviously starting to work in either general practice or secondary care, a lot of which are international medical graduates as well, and we get a lot of those that tend not to have any experience of consultation skills or communication skills. So when we speak to them, we do a lot of work again with the soft skills. So we'll use active listening, clear communication, and they all kind of concentrate on their hand movements, their eye contact, and whether they're actually making contact and making a connection with that patient. These are quite large groups, so we could get 40, 45 at a time. I only have 30 headsets, and having them all on the go at one time is not only nerve-wracking, it's not really a great thing to do. It takes time to manage them, to sort of sort out issues and solution find and stuff like that. So what we tend to do with them is chop them in half. Half will do the headsets and Bodyswaps. The other half will go through facilitated sessions in small groups of 4 or 5, generally around a laptop on a couple of other pieces of software that we use to kind of practice communications, consultation styles and things like that. We kind of look at other program cohorts like aspiring practice managers and reception and admin, which are again much more small and sort of compact in their group numbers, and they're also non-clinical as well, so we don't want to miss those out. When they're on a smaller group as well, they tend to be able to give you a better debrief. We have some really good conversations, and they tend to link them up to, well, this happened to me back in practice, and oh my gosh, yes, I can reflect on that because that was a real conversation that I had. So that's really quite interesting. And again, even smaller specialist groups. So we have sometimes some aspiring leaders that come to that program that want to know a little bit more about how we use technology enhanced learning in training. So some of those will come. I'll front load a class with lots and lots of different topics and different bits of scenario that they can actually have a look at and test themselves. And then the one that's really given us some food for thought is actually going out to GP practices. A lot of practice managers come and go, can you do something with our reception staff? Can you do something about dealing with angry patients and kind of de-escalation and stuff like that, which then has led us on to creating our own. So next slide, please. Okay. So looking again at our navigating angry conversations. So this is our sergeant major that you can see there at the top left. I love this guy, and I'm sure as a practice manager back in quite an affluent area of Doncaster, I knew this guy. He was a patient of mine, and I met him. But he was part of this scenario that we did with the reception and admin, and he kind of really wasn't angry enough, apparently. So looking at the AR role plays, it gave us an opportunity to kind of create bespoke sessions. We would have a clinician that would lead what needed to be said and look at the sort of clinical aspects of that, what they might say, or we'd hire in a subject matter expert on whatever it was that we wanted to sort of lead on and talk about. And then within that as well, we'd got not only the AI assessment criteria that sat within Bodyswaps, but you'd also got the kind of the subject matter experts assessment criteria that we could pop in there as well. So our examples here, as I say, we took our sergeant major and we made a challenging patient called Faye. Now, Faye, as you can see here, she's got her own backstory, you know, like in general practice, a lot of the time, if there aren't any appointments available, you're told to go elsewhere. She was told to go to A&E and obviously wasn't happy about that. So that whole conversation is around kind of appeasing the patient and making sure she's fully sort of understanding why that decision has been made and to sort of, you know, make sure she's actually okay. But all that backstory we're able to put in, and you know, one or two sort of bits that come out is that she often thinks that she's been fobbed off because of her appearance or because of her background and things like that, which does happen. We then went on to creating a bit more of a challenging workplace conversation, which we actually tested out this morning. So I created this where our trainee nurse associates were dealing with another nurse on the same team, and they were arguing about how to deliver a baby clinic. And it was fascinating actually to watch our nurse associates go from quite bolshy of, I'm going to tell this person, I'm going to be right, I'm going to do this, to actually backing down and going, oh, okay, well, I see your point. Oh, well, let's try that. Let's revisit that in a little while and let's evaluate it and let's see how that goes. It was really interesting to listen to them. And then again, we use it in kind of job interviews, specific job interview training, which is really fascinating. Again, it's really handy for our Restore program. So these are kind of, again, refugee nurses that have come to the UK. We help them within that program. So get a job as a healthcare assistant. We help them with their kind of DBS check forms and again, getting a job. So having a specific role play where they can answer questions that they will be asked, particularly pertinently to their own job role that they're going to, it's so useful. It's brilliant, really handy. So we've used that quite a few times. And then again, we do a lot of the active listening in healthcare. Obviously, we know that patients come in with one thing, but actually there's 3 or 4 or 5 things often going on at the same time. So, and again, it's really interesting watching kind of qualified nurses not being able to do their to-do list. They have to actively listen and work out what's happening with the patient. So usually on the second go or on the third go, they get much better and much stronger at the actual active listening bit. Next slide, please, Georgia. Oh, there we go. So this is pathways. So again, moving on, this is, as you know, as we were talking about earlier, this is truly bespoke because we can take the best bits of the stuff that we found on there that really work. We can link them in with our own AI role plays. I describe it as the supermarket shelf approach because I'm literally going in, I'm grabbing bits that I know work and I'm popping them together. And then interspersed between there, we can do a bit of knowledge check-in, as Marilee said. We will say, okay, right, here's a quiz. Let's answer some questions on that. We will even cheekily, right at the end, put in a little evaluation that generally asks them, so how do you feel actually the use of TEL tools embedded the education that you've had today? Or how do you feel this bit of simulation will help you go forward in your actual role? And we've used this in a couple of different ways. So we've done some chaperone training where we get a fully qualified experienced nurse to talk about the actual task of chaperone training. What does that entail? And then in between that, we pop them in the headsets and we give them what we think is a challenging conversation. Because what if something did happen and the patient was uncomfortable and you had to have that conversation either with the patient or with the person who did that examination? Say, well, actually, was that quite right? How did that go? And for someone who's either a receptionist, an admin, or a healthcare assistant, to then question somebody of a GP or an experienced nurse is quite difficult. So we'd put those in together, but it made it more bespoke. It made it sort of really sing from and kind of marry up with the training they'd had. And I guess the final one that I wanted to kind of point out was the confident communication one. And we've used this across a broad spectrum of people, actually. But just to say really ultimately that this is really customizable. You're able to kind of press a button that says we can skip through these if we want them to be skippable, we can do. So that means that the session is more fluid. We can go by the reactions of the trainees in the room and go, oh, actually, let's not do this one, let's add this one instead. It is truly bespoke content. It's relatable to their role, it's relatable to their setting and actually their experiences in the role. It's actually really useful because they get to concentrate or practice on conversations that they do have, they will continue to have. They can just get better at it. And I know we've referred to this before, but it is a psychologically safe space where we go, it doesn't matter if you make a mistake because you're not going to upset the avatar. And even if you do, what are they going to do? It's not a patient sat in front of you. It's not your boss. It's not somebody who can, you know, take you to a tribunal or be really, really bad. This is a safe space. Get it wrong 2 or 3 times and then practice getting it right. It is excellent simulation. I really love this. And I often lead with this, especially if I'm speaking to NHS colleagues, that it is a low cost per use for us in particular, and it's getting lower. The more we use it, the more comfortable we are with it, the happier we are with it. We will use it more and more and more. So our cost per use is coming down. And I think that's it. I think that's my last slide. I've got Georgia. Is it the next one? There we go. So yeah. So again, fancy QR code because we like those now. I'm quite happy to be contacted on LinkedIn or on email. I'm quite happy to speak to anyone. As you can tell, we're both chatters, I think, merrily. But yeah, I just think to share is just to help people out. So thank you very much for listening to me. Go on.
Thanks a lot, Liz. That was amazing. I must remind everyone that neither Liz nor Marilee are on Bodyswaps payroll, despite all the praise that
I will try.
they're giving. It was truly great, and we've said throughout that pathways were easy to use and quick to create. And since we only have 10 minutes left, I'm going to have to demonstrate that right now. So we had a very healthcare kind of flavor to the pathway that was shown, but just like French cheeses, there are a lot of flavors, a lot of things that you can build with Bodyswaps. So we're going to create a very quick pathway. You should be able to see my screen in just a second. Yes, there we go. Okay, so now this is the list of the public pathways that Liz has mentioned. You could go and duplicate those and create your own, but we're going to create one from scratch today. And the one I decided to create is about you, the educator, being a candidate to become the new Dean of Academic Integrity and Innovation. And what you're essentially preparing for is a debate with the other candidates on why you should be the one selected for the role. So here we go. We are going to build a pathway, and it's very easy, just like building blocks. So we could start by adding a little description of what the pathway is about. I've pre-written that just for the sake of time. So here we go. Can you win the vote? and so on and so forth. And now we're going to start adding units. So Liz, I like your supermarket shelf analogy, but don't get me started on British supermarkets. We're going to start in this case with a questionnaire. So we're going to create a questionnaire. We're going to call it something like, I don't know, your thoughts on AI, because obviously that's what that big debate is going to be about. We're going to make the questionnaire public. There we go. And we're just going to add a question, free form, multiple choice, like it. Let's keep it free form. And we're going to get you to reflect on your core value that will define your leadership as a dean, as well as, you know, let's say one opportunity that excites you about AI, and we'll stick it to that. Okay, we started your questionnaire. We're getting you to think about what you're all about. Now, let's start preparing you for that debate. So what are the kind of things that you could work on? Well, first, what can you do around your voice? So we could use this one, finding your voice. So this is, you're going to have a quiz with a charisma coach. And then you're going to define whether you're more of a teacher, a motivator, an expert, or an influencer. That seems quite good to find your style of speaking. So we'll add that one. What else? Maybe we want to help you train communicating with concision, clarity, and confidence. So this is a game show activity, 10 minutes, where you're going to pitch a new product idea, almost like a TV show. I'm not going to name the name to not make publicity to an American president, but you get the idea. So we'll add that, you know, just a little game to pitch. And then finally, what else could we do about your voice? Maybe you've got the nerves a little bit. So maybe grounding yourself or personal calming technique. Let's go with grounding yourself. Okay, so now we've got 3 exercises: finding what kind of speaker you are, training to speak with concision, confidence, and a little bit of a breathing exercise. So lastly, let's add an AI role play. So again, there's all kinds of role plays that we have created, but we are going to create a new role play. And so to do that, the first step is going to be to select from the various templates that I'm sure are going to show up in a second. Here we go. So we said this was going to be a debate. So let's select the debating role play. What you can do, you can go manually and fill in all of those boxes, or you can use the AI assistant. So that's what we are going to do today. So I'm going to enter something very simple in the AI assistant. There we go. Live debate simulation. You will defend your vision of responsible AI integration. The candidate you're going to be against is going to advocate for replacing teachers with AI system and just have security staff and fun officers in the classroom, because that should be cool, right? I'm sure you're happy to be in the camp that I've put you in. So we've got the AI assistant. It's creating a title, a description. My organization can assign this. We get the topic. So the learner's view of the topic, that's your view. You can change whatever you want. And then we're going to be against Leonard in that case, but you can pick any opponent. That's just a character. And then you're going to define what's the AI view on the topic, what's their background and interest, what's their mood, let's say the angry, level of the debate, the number of exchanges, and then finally whether we would request for the learners to submit a learner report. And that's it. We're adding it to the pathway, and I believe we have a pathway ready to assign. So very simple. We created that, and we still have 5 minutes to spare. And so 2 quick call to actions, and then we'll have 4 minutes for Q&A. The first one, if you want to build your first pathway with us, you can scan this QR code or type in that URL, and you'll be able to book a meeting with the team. It will be either Janie or Tyler, and you can discuss your needs. We'll help you build your first pathway, and then give you 1 month to try it out as much as you want. The other thing, I leave it for the last minute, and maybe Laura, you can share the link, or you have already, fantastic. It's going to be a quick Mentimeter for you to tell us what it is that you want us to build next, so that maybe in a year from now, when we do this again, I will show you what we heard. But let's use maybe those last 4 minutes for questions. Laura, I don't know if you're happy to jump in and give us questions, or if you would rather I select a few.
Nope, happy to jump in. I did pop a message in the chat as well, just to say, based on the time, we don't think we can answer all questions submitted, so we will send around an email after with a recap of any that were missed. But one that's come up a few times, Chris, which I'd like to pose to you, is the ability to share pathways that people have created with other organizations. Is that on our roadmap? There's been a few questions on that might be good for you to shed some light on.
Yes, well, it's a very interesting one, and the answer, it depends on you. So as I said before, over 2,000 pathways have been created. I saw we had a question about pathways in management, for example. So we will add some public pathways on management, but I know that some great pathways on management have been created. So what you can see at the bottom of your screen here, you have a number of icons, thumbs up, all the way to thumbs down. I'd like to have a quick vote on whether you would like to have a thumbs up. So you would like to have a library of pathways created by the rest of the community accessible to you. If you agree, give it a thumbs up like this. Or if you think it will mess things up, in which case you give me a thumbs down. Seems that it's mostly, if not only, thumbs up. So I will show the recording to my CTO the next time we talk about the roadmap. And hopefully we can find a way to add pathways created by the community, and so that you can find them. But 2,000 pathways created already, I'm sure we can give a lot of resources. So great learning. Thank you for all those thumbs ups. Laura?
The next question is for Liz, which is, are there more plans to add more content to our public pathways? So healthcare management, anything else, or any other plans that we have on our side?
Yes, I can jump in. Potentially in the near future, we are looking at what opportunities there are for us to create some more of that sort of scaffolded, scripted content as opposed to role plays. Nothing I can sort of give you in concrete words right now, but watch this space.
Yes, and please do use the Mentimeter link if you have any pathways or content you would like us to create.
And then a final one for you, Chris, and we wrap up the Q&A there, which is an important one, I think, because it's a key understanding of how the different ways you can use Bodyswaps, which is how well would this be facilitated or experienced by mobile phone users? Would it translate as well if you're not using VR?
Yes, it's an interesting question. There's a trade-off between immersion and convenience. So doing it on 2D, you can reach more learners and they can do more. So if you have a pathway like the one I showed that was 443 minutes, and you have 5,000 sessions in that pathway like the other examples, doing it all in virtual reality is going to be very difficult. Conversely, being in virtual reality, the immersion that VR provides from a memorability perspective is greater. And so what we found is some institutions use a bit of both, where they will ask learners to use their own 2D device as experiential homework. So they would go through the pathway once, or through almost the entire pathway once on their own device in their own time. So full convenience and psychological safety. But it might be that there's a last element, typically a role play that you want to give them in VR for maximum immersion. So there's no perfect answer. It really depends on your preferred mode of deployment.